Hi, Rosie.
Hello.
Look at you. We were just laughing so hard because both of us have on the same color. It's just like that just hardly ever happens.
We're on the same wavelength, Jean.
I know, and look at us. We both look fabulous. Okay, Rosie, I this is very exciting for me, and I am going to let you introduce yourself. You have, my gosh, all these letters and everything after your name, but I want you to introduce to our followers what you do, and then let me jump in and talk to you because I've been kind of on the fence about this.
I know. And Jean, I first off just want to thank you for having me be a part of all that you do.
Thank
I think what you do is so powerful. So I just want to start with that I just feel so honored to be here and spend this time with you and your listeners today. Introduction. So my name is Rosie Gaston. The letters behind my name, Jean, say that I have a master's in social work. I'm a licensed independent clinical social work with an advanced certification in hospice and palliative care. So that's the fancy, the long way of saying the acronyms behind my last name. But I am an end of life social worker. I went into this field with full passion, full vigor, knowing that this is my purpose in life, is to help people talk about the hard stuff. I've always been prone to do that before I became a social worker, so it only was fitting that I went into this type of work.
I know. Let me just jump in right then. But Rosie, how old are you?
I'm 36.
Okay, so 36, and you were doing this. You said even you were helping people and doing this even before, and you knew it was your mission. At 36, you are so young. How did you know that? And how did you, I mean, that's amazing that you knew you wanted to do this, and especially this end of life stuff when you're so young. I mean, how did that happen?
I think it's a combination of different life events that happened.
Okay.
I experienced some pretty significant loss myself when I was a teenager, and compounding losses one after the other. And it was a space that, while I was devastated and I was heartbroken, I found purpose in helping those around me heal and being a support for them, and helping them through their grief, even as a teenager. And so, I got my undergrad in psychology. I was a very adventurous 20-year-old. I moved to Boston. I moved to Key West. I was kind of living all over the place, loving life. And then, I had this, I don't know, just this epiphany, this calling to be like, okay, now it's time to figure out how you're really going to help the world. So I came back to Minneapolis, which is home, and I started volunteering. And one of the places I started volunteering was a hospice agency. And within a matter of a few visits, it was like, yeah, this is it.
Wow.
This is it.
That that is, I mean, I'm getting chills. That
Mhm.
is mind-boggling. I'm meeting a lot of young women that are really seem to know what what their purpose is and everything, but they're like in their like 40s and 50s, because 50 years since I'm 84, 50-year-olds are young. But I think that here you are in your 30s, and even in your 20s you knew that, and I just, oh my gosh, that is just like so fabulous. Well, when you and I first met, Rosie, and I'm just going to be very honest because I'm very honest, and
I know.
all my followers know that I'm very honest. I was very apprehensive because I said, I really try with my website and my, you know, all the stuff that I do. I try really hard to keep things very optimistic, and get out there and have fun, and be, have a good attitude, and blah blah blah. And then I don't really mention about this end of life thing. So I told you, I said I want it to be really positive and really good. Well, Rosie, I have to tell you, now you and I talked for quite a while yesterday on the phone.
Yeah.
I am so excited after our talk yesterday, and I feel so relieved because you just made it sound, and I want you to tell our people that. I don't want to be doing all the talking here, but I just wanted you to know that after our discussion yesterday, that I just felt really good about what you're doing, and I want to work with you on it, and I want my husband and I both to work on it. And I want you to explain it, but you had said to me, I told you that I have such a, and I haven't, Mike and I haven't done anything to prepare for, and we are in our 80s, and we haven't done anything to prepare for, and we have an only child, and she's going to be stuck with everything. She knows we want to be cremated, but we don't have anything, really done. But I told you yesterday that I have problems with my asthma, and that I pray to God all the time that when I do go, that it's not because I can't breathe, because it would just be such a horrible, horrible death.
Yeah, for sure.
And you gave me some really good feedback on that. And so I want you to tell everyone what you were telling me yesterday and about this. When you said the name of your company was A Better Ending, and I'm like, oh, I don't like that name, blah, blah, blah. And I thought afterwards that was a horrible thing for me to say to you, but anyway, you understood. And now I think it's a great name after we talked yesterday in more detail. So I guess I really want us to get into details here so people understand this, because it's fabulous. And like you said to me yesterday, once you've worked through this, and once you plan it out, then you can breathe easier, and everything's taken care of. Your family knows what you want, everything. And this is more, Rosie, than just sitting down in your doctor and filling out that, what is that thing you fill out?
There's a few different forms that you can fill out with your provider there. But sometimes it can just be about talking about like your code status. So CPR, do not resuscitate, those types of conversations.
But what you were saying to me yesterday, you do more than this. So let's get into that. And I'll stop talking. I want you to explain what it is that you do and what people receive from that.
So Jean, even just sitting here and listening to you talk, you identified like 3 of my big main whys that I do what I do. Number 1, a lot of people don't talk about this. They don't plan for it. Whether it be something that they intentionally just push it away and don't want to talk about it and don't go there, or it's out of sight, out of mind. Like, you're healthy, Jean. You don't anticipate anything like that happening to you right now, and so that's one of my whys, is that this just isn't happening in our society. And from what I have seen, being at the bedside for hundreds of patients, it needs to start happening. The number 2 reason, you talked about your daughter, right? Because the number 1 people that are impacted by us not talking about it, by us not planning for it, are the people that we love the most. And ultimately, they're the ones that can be the most impacted by the lack of preparation. And number 3, you told me, you just said that after we got done talking, you felt the sense of relief.
Yes.
Right? And that is my entire goal with what I do and why I do it, is because we live in a society where talking about death and dying is so taboo. It's something we don't want to do. We stay away from it. That is our cultural norm, right? And so because of that, people are death illiterate. They don't have language. They don't know what death looks like. They don't know how to approach something that seems so scary. And while I'm not trying to say death and dying is this, easy peasy thing, and that's why I call it a better ending instead of a beautiful ending or a perfect ending, because we can't, even with all the planning in the world, we can't promise that. Right. But I do believe that working with me, talking about your goals, your wishes, your values, bringing in your family, getting this support and this education from, again, somebody who's been at the bedside for hundreds of patients as they navigate complex decisions of Do I go a comfort focus route? Do I do a curative route, all the way to their very end of life? I have seen it, and I want to help support my community and help support other people in understanding what I understand to help I can never say eliminate the fear, because that's just not it. All of us, even I, have some fears around death, right? But it can at least help us feel more comfortable and more prepared.
Mhm. So you tell me the procedure
Yeah.
again. You sit down with someone like you would sit down with my husband and I,
Mhm.
and what would we go through? What stages would we go through um,
Yeah.
to get
Okay.
to where we need to be?
Sure. So I work with individuals in one of two settings. And when I say, I also work with couples, I work with family systems. So it's whatever the need of the person who initially reaches out to me. End of life doesn't happen in a funnel. So oftentimes it is bringing in the other loved ones to be able to be a part of these conversations. So I either work with them when they're not facing a life limiting condition. So, Jean, like sitting down with you and your husband, you're just saying, I want to best prepare. I want to have my ducks in a row. I want to have the conversations. I want to bring our daughter in. I want her to know what we want. The other part of the other part of my practice is supporting people who are navigating a life limiting illness and struggling with some of the limitations of our healthcare system, and needing more of just somebody to come in and sit down with them at their kitchen table and talk with them about supports like hospice and palliative care, talk to them about, again, what their wishes and goals are, but they're more in the thick of it. So it's much more, what is the next few weeks, months to days of my life going to look like?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to say that piece. So, but going back to the first group of people that I support, like you and your husband, Jean, oftentimes what this looks like is I would go to your home. So if you are somebody that lives in the Twin Cities metro, I do this support in your home. I come to you. These are such vulnerable, intimate, hard conversations that I find doing them in person in the space where these people are most comfortable
Yes,
is the best way to do that.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
So, Jean, I would come to your beautiful home and sit down with you and Mike. And, one of the big processes that I do is help people complete healthcare directives.
Yeah.
Oftentimes people go to attorneys for this, and that's okay too. I've seen some healthcare directives that were drafted by attorneys that are helpful. I will also say I have seen a lot of healthcare directives drafted by attorneys that do not give the level of detail that family members and healthcare providers need when they are in the thick of a crisis and trying to figure out, what would Jean want? It'll have vague language like, if I were imminently dying. So what does imminently dying mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's so much vague language. And so what I bring into the space that's unique is somebody who has sat in the hospital with families, with those doctors sitting right there as they are asking these questions and families are trying to navigate these situations. So I bring in all of that expertise and all of that experience to really help prepare people the very best I can.
Mm-hmm.
I worked inpatient during COVID, Jean. I don't know if we talked about this. And my role during that time was I supported people as they navigated hospice. So whether is it time, is this what we want to transition to? Is this comfort focused plan of care? Or, they were within days to weeks of their life. So we were planning for hospice. And, I just saw, again, during COVID, a lot of families couldn't come and be at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Or, Jean, with your asthma, if something would have happened to Mike, there would have been serious risks for you to come into the hospital to even be a part of these.
Right, right.
And, so that's one of my big whys too, is it's like, let's get all the information that we need. So when whether it be a crisis or sometimes it's a progression of an illness,
Mm-hmm.
that way we're all on the same page and we know what we want.
Mm-hmm.
So sitting down with you and Mike, we would review a healthcare directive together.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Which,
two.
which we do not have.
Yep. Jean, I'll see you next week.
Oh,
You know,
really?
there's
I told you, I don't mean to interrupt, but
yeah,
I told you, Rosie, that one of the reasons that I don't think about it that much is because I don't think about my age that much. I keep kind of forgetting that I'm 84 and that's, kind of on the downhill. I keep thinking I'm still on the uphill because I'm like, I got lots of mountains to climb before it's over. So and I am healthy, so I don't really think about it. And that's what I think is so important to get the word out, is someone like me. I mean, even though I'm older, I just, I need to think about this. And I think we have a tendency, if we are in good health, and feeling good, I think we have a tendency to just keep putting that off and putting that off, and we have to stop that. So yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, Jean, you're totally on. And the thing is it isn't even about age. I've worked with patients in their 40s, in their 30s, who are facing or who have a terminal diagnosis. So this isn't just for people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. This is for anyone over the age of 18. All of us should have a healthcare directive.
Yeah.
I drafted my first one when I was 25.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted to make sure if something were to ever happen to me, in my likelihood at my age, it'd be maybe a bad car accident or something. But that way my family would never have to question what it is that I want and I don't want. Because our healthcare system by default does absolutely everything they can to keep you alive.
Yeah.
If there isn't a clear healthcare directive, or if you don't have a strong advocate, and again, that's the system we live in, and so that's really too why it's like, no, let's talk about this, let's have this clear, because I truly do believe the doctors and the providers that are out there in the world want to do best by their patients. I truly do believe that based on what I've seen, but the system they work with makes it challenging.
So after we go through it all and we fill out everything, and then we'll talk about my diamond later.
Yeah.
But after we do all that, then are you saying that at the end, when things are happening, that you're available then to come in and talk to the doctors if you have to, or to do whatever you need? I mean, after we fill out all this stuff, do we just keep it until things start happening, and then who do we give it to? Or I mean, do we
No,
call you and you come in and hold our hand, or what?
these are really great questions, Jean. So we would complete the healthcare directive, which names your healthcare agents. So for you, and I'm not speaking for you, might make good sense for your husband and your daughter to be your healthcare agents. For some people, those closest to them may not be the best choice. When we think about who's going to be our healthcare agent, it has to be somebody, number one, who is good in stressful situations, because when these moments come up, that's what it is. It's crisis, stressful situation.
Yeah.
Number two, they have to be somebody that can separate what they want from what you want. Because their whole role is to say, this is what Jean has written in this document. This is what we're going to do. Even if they're like, oh man, I wish we'd try one more treatment. No, that's not what Jean says she wanted. So I need to put my wishes aside and be the voice for her. Sometimes if there's family conflict, I spoke with a woman the other day, and her brother is a doctor. She has a ton of siblings, but she elected her best friend because if her best friend says, no, we're not doing this, she didn't want her family to be at discord with each other, be fighting with each other. So she felt like the best person within her system was to be this best friend. So anyways, we talked through that together. Every individual is totally different. So I'm just there to be a sounding board and ask thoughtful questions. So that way we pick the best people for that.
Okay, but answer my question. Okay,
No,
so my daughter is like so strong and so solid, and if something happens to Mike, or if something happens to me, she's in here in a heartbeat and helping and taking care of stuff and calling doctors and everything. But when I had cancer 20 years ago, she kind of fell apart. She was scared to death. And that was when I kind of realized that yes, I think it would be really hard for her, because normally she would be the one that I would say, oh, she can come in here and and she can take care of things as long as it's just us in the hospital, or, talking to the doctors and getting medication, all that. But if it's a death thing with me or her dad, I think she'd have a real hard time. So you're saying that we could put you in there to be our advocate or whatever. And you're so young, you're going to live, we can use you for the next 40 years or whatever.
So to be clear, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, it's
So it's
not?
no, 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 no. So it's what I'm saying is
Shoot.
that we have to look within your own system and I help you pick out who that person is.
Oh, so it's not
Um,
you.
yeah, no, I can't be in that slot, in part because I'm a licensed social worker, so there's some conflict of interest piece
Oh,
that
okay.
I have to be careful
Well,
of.
how do you pick someone then? I don't think my best friend could do it either, because I'm telling you, I keep saying to Mike, when something happens to me, she's going to suffer more than any of you. How
Sure.
do you ever pick someone?
So this is in part, Jean, where when we sit down and do this with you and Mike, I'm going to say your daughter should be there.
She's in Chicago.
Then we should put her over Zoom just like we are
Yeah,
right
yeah, yeah.
because part of the fear in these places is her not knowing what you want. So when I can sit there and I can guide you through these conversations from what are your goals around your healthcare right now? What brings your life quality? And if you couldn't do those things anymore, would you still want them to focus on curative treatment or focus more on keeping you comfortable? When it comes to the end of your life, what do you want that to look like? Where do you want to be? And then going to that next stage of after you pass away, after you die, what do you want done with your remains? What do you want your celebration of life or lack of celebration of life? What are your wishes there? Because so many times with families, it's just that they don't know. And again, they don't have the language to facilitate these conversations.
Well, and I'm telling you right now, I know your prices, and your prices are so good, and we'll get into that a little later. But I told you yesterday when we were talking that I decided, like, 12 years ago, this was a new thing, but I decided that I was going to do this because I thought it was so great. Now, Mike thought it was a little quirky, but then I called Michelle and I said, honey, would you do something for me that really is important? And she didn't even hesitate. And she said, yes, mother, what is it? I want to have my ashes made into a diamond that is, I consider a diamond, like a little crystal. And I was telling you, I want her to just put it in a little box, put it in a drawer. And as she gets older, I think when you never really realize what you're going through emotionally and mentally when you get older, and by that I mean, like 70s or 80s or whatever, then you do go through stuff. And she doesn't have a brother or sister. And I think that if she had my little crystal, you don't think of it as my ashes, I think of it as just a little part of me, and that she could take that out and hold it and get some good, because she's very spiritual. And then so she said yes, she would do it, but she said you have to have this all written down in your will, who to contact, everything. And then I was talking to you and I'm like, well, I can't, so do I have to go to we do have wills, so do I have to go to my you know attorney and get this in the will, or is this something you can do that's written down and that it's viable? And I mean, is that something you can do?
Yeah, so Jean, this would go into that kind of that last section of your healthcare directive. So I'm a notary. So when I meet with people, by the time I leave their home, as long as they are ready to, they will have a legal and formal healthcare directive. So, but in that goals of care piece, in that last chunk that talks about what do you want to happen to your body after you die, this is where we write all of that in. I want my remains to be made into a diamond.
Mhm.
This is the company I want to go through,
Okay.
and then I would also really encourage you, Jean, to contact them, register this with them, especially because you're so sure that this is what you want.
Yeah.
for these kind of things go up every single year. So if you without question know this is what I want, I would even prepay for it now.
Wow, that's a good idea.
So
Because,
that,
and I
yeah,
told you that one of my best friends said to me, she was laughing, and she says, well, how do you know that Michelle wouldn't just rather have the money, than the diamond? And I'm like, well, maybe I don't think she would, though. She's not the least bit money conscious, but and it is expensive to do, but it's just important to me. I don't know why, but I just want to leave something of myself. And that sounds so crude, not of myself, but I don't even know how to explain it. It's, instead of taking my ashes and dumping them in the water, and it's so funny, and this is very sacrilegious, and I shouldn't even be saying this on an interview, but I asked my husband, I said, what do you want to have done with your ashes? And he said, oh, just dump them in, just put them in the nearest dumpster. I don't care, but we're kind of that, it's kind of like once the body is
sure.
gone and the spirit goes, and it's like we just kind of don't think it's all that important. So, but instead of taking my ashes and putting them someplace, why not make them into something that is a sweet little thing. And of course, then my granddaughters and my son-in-law say, oh, we want one, we want to have part of you. And I'm like, no, it's too expensive, and there's not enough. Of course, you
Yeah.
can make as many as you want, but anyway, okay, well, that's good to know, because it isn't important, and I just need to get information on that.
And Jean, there's two big things that you said right quick before we move on. Number one, if you want to be made into a diamond, these are your wishes.
Yeah,
And I don't think we need to apologize for them.
yeah, I
And,
don't either.
so that's the approach I very much take with people that I work with is I'm an objective person that has a lot of information and is here to gently support you through this and empower you to do what you want. So
Mhm.
if you want to be made into a diamond, girlfriend, let's find the company that's going to make you the most sparkly, beautiful diamond that you can be.
Yeah.
I also think like you talking about the difference between your wishes and Mike's wishes just
Mhm.
shows how individualistic this process is
Mhm.
and how, again, why we need to have these conversations and have these plans, because you have two people that are married, love each other very much, have spent their lives together, and you want two totally different things for yourselves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, so, and we are gonna meet with you, so can you tell us your pricing?
So for pricing, it's $160 an hour.
Mhm.
And again, this is coming to people's homes for people that live out. I can only support people that live in the state of Minnesota. Again, I am not a coach or a death doula. I'm a licensed clinician, and so I have to follow those guidelines.
Mhm.
Um, and so, if you are somebody that lives in rural Minnesota that doesn't have these kind of supports there, I grew up in small town Minnesota, population of 102 people, and my parents still live up there, and they don't have palliative care teams. So
Mhm.
I'm very open to doing these telehealth type visits for people who live in the rural area. But if you live in the Twin Cities, let's sit down around your dining room table and have this conversation.
So how many hours do you think this takes to pull things together?
I
Just
think,
as a adult, so people kind of have an idea.
yeah, I think it all depends. And I know that that's maybe not the most super helpful answer, but I met with a mother and her daughter last week, and they have a very simple healthcare directive drafted by their attorney, but the healthcare agent is the daughter. We sat down and we just talked through all of these wishes. The daughter took really good notes so that way she knows how to be an advocate. I was there for an hour. And
Okay.
we didn't feel like there was any need to do any follow-up at this moment. There's another family I met with last week where things are really raw for them. So for that first hour, we just kind of just openly started to talk about things, and then I'll continue to follow them.
Mhm.
That it's a double-edged sword a little bit that Medicare won't pay for services like mine. I wish they would. I wish I could go through insurance, but the other beautiful thing about that is that we don't have insurance dictating how often we can meet and what that support looks like. Um,
Right. And Rosie, but I think that is so reasonable. I mean, when you told me that yesterday, I was so impressed, because I thought something like what you're doing and you are a professional, and that's not saying, our life coaches, they're licensed, aren't they?
They can have
Correct.
they can have certifications, so a life coach certification, but I'm bound by the Board of Social Work here in Minnesota to make
That's what I
sure.
mean, though. You're a tighter
Yeah,
professional. I mean, so I think that is so reasonable what you're charging. Now, we only have a few more minutes, but I want you to, how do people get in touch with you? And is there anything else you'd like to say? We have about 5 minutes left.
sure. So best way to get in touch with me is on my website. My website is www.abetterending.org. You can read about all the ways that I support the clients, families, couples that I work with. There's a contact me on there where you can get in touch with me there and send me an email. I will get back to you. I offer free 15-minute initial consultations.
Mhm,
So, just if you just want a minute to say, this is what I'm needing, is this an area that you can help with before diving in and scheduling? We can always do that.
mhm.
Jean, I also put something special together for your listeners because we are just barely pulling the lid back on this conversation.
Right.
So there's a workshop I do here often locally in the Twin Cities, and I've started to do it remotely as well. And it's a workshop called Courageous Conversations, because I believe diving into this takes courage and takes bravery. And it is all about, we call the advanced care planning process. So what questions do we need to be reflecting on? How do we talk to our families about what our wishes, our goals, and our values are? How do we bring in our trusted provider with this? What questions should we be asking them? And then all the way to what legal documents should we be completing in order to line ourselves up well? So if you go to the events page on my website on September 12th, it's a Tuesday at 6:30 at night, I am offering this for free to any of your listeners.
Wow, that's great. Well, and we will, Rosie, since we're running out of time, we will put this on our website. We will put all your information on there and how people can get in touch with you. And then we are going to keep referring back to this. We've recorded this, so we're going to keep referring back to this. I think a lot of different times of different things that you've talked about and said. So we will put all of this on our website. So thank you. That is a real gift.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for our followers. So I really appreciate you. Like I said, when we first met, I had really had my doubts. Yeah, and you know that I did. And then now, after we talked yesterday, it was like, oh, I felt so good, and I have loved this conversation. And I just, oh, you're doing such good work, and I feel very relieved that I am really facing this and talking about it. So, all right.
I'm here to help. I'm here to support. Thank you so much, Jean, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Rosie. I'm going to call you.
Okay.
Okay, bye.